KETV Newswatch 7, chronicling the stories impacting our community. Stories making a difference. Stories that matter to you. This is KETV Newswatch 7's Chronicle.
I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
And with that, Donald Trump becomes the Republican Party's presidential nominee, setting the stage for what could be one of the most interesting presidential elections in recent memory. Good morning. Welcome to KETV Newswatch 7's Chronicle. This morning, we're talking politics and more with Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer. After speaking in Tampa in 2012, she skipped this year's Republican convention in Cleveland, one of a number of Republican senators who opted to stay home. Among them, Nebraska's other senator, Ben Sasse, who has been an outspoken critic of Donald Trump's for months. Now, Senator Fischer has long said that she'll support the nominee. She's here with us this morning. Thanks for joining us, and also welcome to 7 Burlington Station.
Yeah,
here. Thank
you. You have a wonderful studio. I really want to thank you folks for refurbishing this wonderful landmark here in Omaha.
You're welcome, and it's the community is certainly adopting or welcoming us, and we appreciate that. About that, speaking of welcoming, Donald Trump's acceptance speech. What did you make of that?
I thought he did a good job. I think he hit the points he needed to hit. I think it resonated with folks here in Nebraska, so I've heard good reports on it.
Right, and let me ask you politics question. Republican Party. Some people have said you didn't go to Cleveland because, one, you're not a big fan of Donald Trump. That's what some people say. Other people say it's because you want to focus more on issues and not politics, if you will. Which one is it?
I was in Cleveland.
Okay.
I was at the convention. I sat on the floor the first 3 nights.
Oh, my apologies.
I did not
know that.
So yeah, I was in Cleveland. I did not speak at the convention,
right, okay.
but I was in Cleveland, sat on the floor with my fellow Nebraskans for the first 3 nights, watched Donald Trump give his acceptance speech the last night. There was a lot of energy there. I think it was a good convention. Things went smoothly. Really no problems with protesters or anything. You know, we'd heard a lot about there was going to be a lot of protesters and some issues there. No problems at all. It was well run. The city did a great job.
Okay, and I apologize again for not knowing that. I know you didn't speak.
I didn't speak.
Let me ask you about the party itself nationally. How divided is the Republican Party?
Well, I'd say we're pretty united. You know,
United.
we have a few folks who are not ready to support Donald Trump yet as our nominee. But as a whole, I think you see the party pretty united out there. You could feel it in Cleveland. There was a united feel to the convention. Even after Senator Cruz gave his speech, there was some disruption and probably disappointment with his speech there at the convention. But I'd say as a whole, Republicans are united. Donald Trump's doing well in Nebraska.
What about Ben Sasse?
Well, you'd have to talk to Senator Sasse. You know, we disagree on this issue. I enjoy Senator Sasse as a colleague. I like him a lot. We do a good job together in the Senate. But we disagree on this issue.
I've heard some Republicans say, though, that this is could be, quote, a hold your nose and vote election. Do you agree?
Are you talking about Mrs. Clinton? Or, you know, on both sides. We're hearing that with both candidates, that they aren't liked by the public. We see polling that says that. So I think we've seen that on both sides, that it's some disappointment there with the candidates. But these are the choices we have. Right. We have Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, and I've made my choice. And
we also have third-party candidates out there. Speaking of that, realistically, will they win? Probably not. However, their message of we're not the top two seems to be gaining traction, whether it is or not. What do you make of that? And do you think there's any validity to the idea that their message is gaining traction? Well, it might be gaining traction, but I don't think there's any possibility that those third-party candidates will become president of the United States. So however people decide to vote, that's up to them. I believe we have two choices to vote for when it
we have the election in November. That's Donald Trump and it's Hillary Clinton. And as I said, I've made my choice. I support Donald Trump, and I will work to see that he's elected president.
Well, what about down ticket, though? What are, like, say, for state legislative levels?
Well, I don't know about state legislative levels. You know, I'm focused on the U.S. Senate.
Right.
This is it's kind of a tough year for Republicans in the election, just because of who are incumbents, the states they're running in. You know, we're looking at states like New Hampshire and Pennsylvania and Ohio, Illinois. Those were tough states for Republicans to win, and we have great incumbents now who are running there. I'm going to work hard traveling the country like I did 2 years ago to get Republicans elected. I like being in the majority in the United States Senate. And being in the majority, I've been able to accomplish, I think, a lot of really good things for the people of Nebraska. And I think we're able to accomplish a lot of things that had been put off for years. Some reauthorization bills, such as the highway bill or the education bill, the FAA bill. Those are things that had been put off, and we were able to work together in a bipartisan manner, because it takes 60 votes in the Senate, and we were able to work together and get those big things passed. I think that's major accomplishments that we've gotten done, and I give credit to all my Senate colleagues to be able to come together and do that.
One more question on the political side, and bipartisanship, you mentioned it, takes 60 votes. What happens if scenarios for me, what happens if Donald Trump wins? And what happens if Hillary Clinton wins as far as the bipartisanship and working together?
Well, I'm going to continue working with Republicans and Democrats. That's what I promised Nebraskans I was going to do.
But what do you think your colleagues will do?
That's what I'm going to keep doing. I've established good relationships with a number of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I love to always point out Cory Booker. You know, he's the vegan and I'm the cattle rancher, but yet we have passed great bills together. We look for ways that we can work together. You know, we just passed a pipeline bill that deals with the safety of all the pipelines under this country. He and I worked together on that, and we were able to draw our colleagues in and get that passed. We worked on a Marine Administration, a Reauthorization Act. We got that passed, and it focuses on some sexual assault issues that I think need to be addressed at our Merchant Marine Academy. He and I believe strongly that those issues need to be addressed. We work on Internet of Things issues. We're kind of the tech people in the Senate, so we've done that. And then he just joined me on another bill to help our veterans who suffer from PTSD to provide a pilot program so that they can have service dogs to help them become more comfortable in stressful situations. And so, you know, we look for things we can work on together. And he's one example of folks that I work with on the other side. I've worked with Amy Klobuchar on broadband issues, on Kerry's Law. I've worked with Bill Nelson on some e-commerce things. So there's a lot, I guess, that doesn't get reported. When we're accomplishing things that have a direct impact on people's lives. And I'm going to keep doing that no matter who's president.
Okay. And one of the issues also, you're on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Tell me, what is, if you had to pick the #1 threat against our country, I assume you'd say terrorism, one way or the other, domestic or foreign, which one would it be? Or what would be the biggest threat?
We face so many threats, and the number of those threats continues to grow. I would say Iran is still the #1 threat, and it's because they are such a big sponsor of terrorism. You know, we've seen the Islamic State continue to grow. We have not seen leadership from this administration to step in and eradicate it in its base, whether that's Mosul or Raqqa. As long as the Islamic State has territory, they are better equipped to recruit. A year ago, if we were talking about this, I would have said we need to have a plan. We need to go in. We need the strategy. We need to take them out. And they were concentrated there. Well, in the last year, Rob, we've seen them expand outside that territory. We've seen attacks in Europe. We've seen attacks here in the United States that have been brought about because of ISIL. So while while that, of course, is a major concern, and it will be for years and years to come, we have a nation state that is a great threat to us in Iran. We have another nation state, Russia, that is a great threat to us as well. Things are happening in Asia, in the South Pacific, with China that are very disturbing. So we have a number of issues across this world that cause me to stay up at night. But to me, Iran, and with their, I guess, pushing it to the edge with this new nuclear agreement that was made, yeah, I'm pretty concerned about the belligerence and the aggression that they show.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk other issues, including immigration, a new law Senator Fischer's backing, what's next on her agenda as well. You're watching KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle.
I've always thought if ICE is not going to do their job in this case, then Congress needs to step up and tell them how to do it. And that's what this legislation does.
That's Senator Deb Fischer talking about Sarah's Law, named after Sarah Root. She was the 21-year-old killed in a car crash hours after graduating from Bellevue University. This guy, 19-year-old Eswin Mejia, rear-ended her, and he was in the country illegally. Prosecutors say he was drunk and racing before the crash at 33rd and L. Mejia bonded out, then vanished after immigration officials decided not to detain him. Sarah's Law requires ICE to detain illegal immigrants who are charged with crimes in the death or seriously bodily injury of another person. And joining me now to talk more about why she's supporting Sarah's Law, Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer. At the end of June, you and Senator Ben Sasse, along with Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, joined Joni Ernst, held a news conference talking about this bill. Why is it so important?
I had the opportunity to meet with Sarah's mother and to listen to truly the devastating grief of a parent who loses a child, but then has to lose that child in this manner, where the person who took your child's life, the police had, or in this case they didn't, but they let them go, the previous offenses. So it was an issue where the four of us could work together, and I thank Senator Joni Ernst for coming up with this bill, and my colleagues, we all joined in on it, because I think it highlights an issue that needs to be addressed, that causes so much anger when Nebraskans, when Americans hear about a case like this. So if we can help one family not have to go through this, I think it's very important that we get it done.
Right. Where do we stand on immigration now, in your opinion? The law, is it system completely broken?
Well, the law is not being enforced in many ways. That's definitely an issue. We see executive orders take the place of laws being enacted by Congress. That has to stop. Immigration is a congressional duty, a congressional responsibility. So hopefully, I have always said we need to take this in a step-by-step process. And what I think we can all agree upon is we need secure borders. Now, being on the Armed Services Committee, I come at this with a national security perspective. We need to have secure borders to keep our country safe. And I'm not just talking about the southern border. You know, as I chair the subcommittee on transportation and merchant marine security and safety, we looked at ports. That was the second hearing I held on that in the Commerce Committee. We looked at our ports. Our ports aren't very secure either. I mean, we need to make sure that this country is secure and we know who's coming in and what they're bringing with them. And I think that's something all of us can agree upon, Republican or Democrat. So if we take it in a step-by-step process, address that first, and then look at legal immigration, because I think there's many areas where we can look at reforming legal immigration so that we can welcome people to this country legally. And we are a very compassionate nation. Right now we take in over 1 million immigrants, legal immigrants, every single year. That's more than any other nation.
Well, how would you reform legal immigration?
You can look at, first of all, there's different groups. That business groups would like to see more high-tech workers be able to immigrate to this country. Agriculture needs people to be able to work in the fields. I mean, just dealing with legal immigration right now, my office, for example, we worked with an agriculture producer who was waiting to get some workers in who had the correct documentation to come in and harvest some produce that he had that was going to rot if these folks couldn't get in. But the system was so tied up, you know, my office had to work on that. Hopefully it didn't last too long, thank goodness, but able to get those workers to get in and help that producer so he didn't have produce that was going to rot on the vine. I mean, just things like that. We need to look at why we have these roadblocks in certain areas. We have a system. Let's make sure that, first of all, the system we have works and what we need to do to change it.
One of the other issues that's facing the country is the attack on law enforcement and the issue of race relations, and then law enforcement out of control is what some people say. You get the whole Black Lives Matter issue. In your opinion, what's the answer?
Well, the answer is that we respect and we are grateful for the people that serve us and protect us every single day, and that's our law enforcement. And I believe that we have to voice that appreciation. We have to be strong in supporting our law enforcement and let them know that, but let all members of our community know that as well. And we all should be standing up saying it. Relations in some part of this country, the race relations, aren't that great, is my understanding. Right. We've seen the divide grow. I'm sorry to say that in the last several years in some areas of this country. We have to do what we can so we can build, I guess, within each community more understanding.
Well, is there anything you can do in Congress? Can you pass anything? Would you like to change
legislate love? I don't think that works.
I don't think you can legislate love. You can try, but people talk about gun control. You talk about all kinds of issues. Is there anything that you would consider doing?
I don't know what you would expect the federal government to do. I think first of all, our police force should be local. We don't need a federal police force. I don't think that's what anyone in this country wants. I don't believe that's what our founders had in mind. We have a military to deal with our security in this country. But when it comes to our local law enforcement, that's exactly what it should be. It should be local law enforcement. And it's up to each community to address their needs, to meet the needs of the local community. You know, Omaha is different than Lincoln. It's different than Grand Island. It's different than Norfolk. It's certainly different than Valentine or Thedford, Nebraska. There are different needs out there. And I think you have to, like schools, you have to be able to let local communities decide on what's appropriate for their communities, whether it's in law enforcement and the relationships within the community because we are so diverse in this state, or whether it's with education of our kids. To me, when I was in the legislature, it was really important to me that we had that local control of our schools where parents, teachers, school boards, communities meet the needs of their children. The state doesn't need to have it all come from the state, and we certainly don't need to have the federal government involved.
Just curious about that because I think a lot of people would agree they know their communities better and so they can handle it better. All right.
I don't think people in Omaha want me coming in saying that I believe that the federal government should do this and this and this and this to make Omaha better. You know how to make Omaha better.
You're probably correct on that. And we're going to be right back with some final thoughts. First, a reminder that your thoughts are a very important part of the show. If you want to be heard, you can email comments to news@ketv.com. Love hearing from you. We'll be right back.
I'm reading Freedom's Cap, which was given to me by Senator Roy Blunt. And this is a book that is about the dome being put on the Capitol building pre-Civil War. But what I found especially interesting as I get into the book is a focus on the House chamber and the Senate chamber and how those were added to the original Capitol building. And one of the main proponents of that is Jefferson Davis. So while we're approaching the Civil War, we have Jefferson Davis really helping our country, helping build a Capitol building which would serve our entire company. And then we know later that he became the president of the Confederacy. So that's a book that I'm hoping to get through. I've started it and I need to finish it. I also want to read about Destiny and Power, which is the book by John Meacham on George H.W. Bush. I would like to get that done this summer. And then every summer, I try to read a book that I've read before. Last summer, I read To Kill a Mockingbird. Summer before that, I read All the King's Men, which is one of my favorite books. And this summer, I'm going to reread Dickens' Tale of Two Cities.
And this is KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle. That is Nebraska's senior Republican Senator Deb Fischer talking with C-SPAN about her summer reading list. So let me ask you, Senator, made any progress on that reading list? Are you through the best of times and the worst of times yet?
You're putting me on the spot now. I'm still on Freedom's Cap, trying to get through that. You need to talk to my staff and where they can give me a little reading time. We're pretty busy,
Right.
you know, traveling the state.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I still hope to get through those. And A Tale of Two Cities happens to be my favorite book, so I'm going to reread it and see if it still is.
You need to do that. You need to do that. And I love asking people what's in their library, what's on their shelf, what's on their bedstand to see what they're reading, because you get an insight into the person.
Yeah.
Do you think anything will get done on Capitol Hill this fall? It's an election year, or are we just in pause mode?
I think before the election, it's mostly pause mode that we're looking at. You know, we have, I think, 4 weeks when we return after our August here in the state. Then the election will be coming up, so there'll be time off so all the candidates can be out there campaigning. But after the election, there'll be a lame duck session, which, you know, I'm always a little cautious about. You never know quite what's going to happen in a lame duck. Just from my observations, I've never gone through one. This will be my first. But you know, that's something that we'll definitely be keeping an eye on, because I think a lot of mischief can happen in a lame duck.
Well, what are Nebraskans telling you? You're traveling the state all the time, I mean, constantly in the meantime. You don't even have time to read. What are Nebraskans telling you then? I mean, they're worried about mischief as well.
Yeah. You know, Nebraskans, they like to hear my story. And my story is I work with Cory Booker and I work with Amy Klobuchar, and, you know, we're getting things done. We're passing big bills, the highway bill, the FAA reauthorization, the education bill. You know, I can go on and on about all the great things we're passing. And Nebraskans are surprised by that, because, of course, not our local media, but, you know, national media seems to focus on how polarized we are.
Sure.
I don't discount that. We are polarized. We represent different states. We represent different philosophical viewpoints. But my message is things are working. We are getting things done that have a direct impact on people's lives. When I talked about working with Amy Klobuchar, we worked on a bill, Carey's Law. And that was a bill named after a young woman who was killed by her ex-husband in a motel room while her daughter, 9-year-old daughter's trying to dial 911. Well, she had to dial 1 and then 911, so she didn't get through. So this was, I guess you could say, a simple bill, but it was by no means a small bill, because it changes where hotel rooms now, you can allow people to dial direct 911.
Okay.
You know, that could be viewed as a small issue, but that will save lives.
Okay.
So good bills like that, things are happening, we're getting big things done. That's my message as I travel the state, and Nebraskans respond to it.
Right. Well, Senator Fischer, we're going to leave it right there. Thanks very much for joining us, and good luck in the rest of your travels.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. And remember, if you missed any part of the show, you want to watch it again, it's online at KETV.com. Look for the Chronicle link under the News tab. I'm Rob McCartney. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next Sunday morning for KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle.